Hey everybody, this is your host Alan, and I am here at a desolate lot in the middle of nowhere to test a car that I really thought I would never be able to drive. The reason is I was kind of worried, what would it be like to drive a car like this out on the street? It must be tough, it must be difficult. I mean, it really is a car that is made for the track, but it's made for a specific kind of track. Today I'm going to see what it's like to drive a drift car. 1, 2, 3. Hey everybody, welcome to What It's Like to Drive, and today we're going to be driving a daily drift car. Now, this isn't just any drift car. This is a 1985 Toyota Corolla GTS. Now, if you know anything like a show called Initial D or people named Kaiichi Tsuchiya who wrote a drift Bible, you may know that this is a fairly popular drift car. The AE86 is legendary for its drifting capabilities. Now, this is actually the domestic version, the one in the US, but in the same respect, the lineage that comes from this car is exactly identical. And the thing that we've never really seen is we see tons of drifting on tracks and in competitions, but we really never saw what it was like to actually daily drive a car. And this car is actually daily driven. It's drifted competitively. It's a car that you could actually go to New England and take a look at and see it for yourselves. And I'm going to take it on some really cool roads that are really going to test what it feels like to actually just regular everyday drive it. Everybody's seen it drift, but have you ever taken one on a regular road, seen what it feels like, see what it's like to actually take a car that spends day in, day out on a track actually down the street like he does? So today we're going to take this car out and we're going to see what it's like to actually drive it. We're going to figure out what the cost is to do it. We're going to see what the cost is to maintain it. We're going to look over certain perks and things that, you know, normally we wouldn't ask of a car like this, but because if you might be on a budget, this may be the only vehicle that you can own. So I want to make sure that if you get into something like this, you're going to know exactly what it's like to drive a Toyota Corolla drift car. So the bad news is, unfortunately, I am not small enough to fit into this awesome racing seat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be the passenger for this ride, and we're going to take a ride in and I'm going to see what it feels like from the passenger side. One thing that I found that was really cool right off the bat is we kind of had to find places to drive that would be as little disruptive to the suspension as possible. So the first thing is that if you can see, this is a bit of a rough ride, and the noise coming out of it it's kind of a loud exhaust. It is a rough ride to say the least. So, but it is still like you can feel the fun coming out of it when you're driving it. This is definitely not a car for anybody. This would be a car. This is the kind of car that somebody who their whole purpose is to take this car to the track and run it and have fun with it. I don't know what it is about it. For me, I love this ride. I like the way this feels, and that's something that I'm sure that a lot of people don't really get into it. Okay, so what was this like to drive? If you're the kind of person that likes luxury cars, this probably isn't the car for you. The ride's rough, it's very low. You actually have to pay attention to what you're driving as. You have to consider the oil pan when you're driving along. A lot of times you'll notice we kind of had to dodge some things, and we really did take it on a landmine of a road to try to see what it was like to drive on the worst conditions this road could have on it. And the beauty of it is it still did pretty good. I expected a lot more banging than I got out of it, and that was the thing is it didn't beat me up too badly. But in the same respect, for a regular car, most people would probably give this a 2 or a 3. I'd give it a solid 4 because it was really it wasn't as bad as it can be. I've driven way worse. There was body noise. There are noises that go on, and again, this is a vehicle that's a drift car. It's made to be successful at drifting, so there's a lot of things that it thinks about that other cars don't. One thing that I really love about this car is the fire extinguisher. I know it's required on the track, but I just think it's something that everybody should have in their car. The racing seat was really cool. It's unfortunate that I'm just a big guy, and it's something that I run into from time to time. I don't get to sit in them and enjoy them like I did, but regardless, for me, it's a fun car that's way out of the spectrum. If you're a drifter, this is what you're going to run into, and it's one of those things if I think you understand and expect it. So that's one thing I think that you know what you're getting into, and I think you can make adjustments accordingly, whether it's a car that's dedicated to the track or whether it's like this that it's being daily driven. I myself, I would daily drive it, but like I said, this is not for the faint of heart. Okay, so what is it going to cost to buy a car like this? Well, to get just the base car itself, you're going to spend upwards of $10,000. The next thing you're going to have to consider is making it track worthy. A lot of that's actually going to be ripping stuff out. Put a tow hook on, put a battery tender, have a fire extinguisher. There's a lot of little things. But where this car is really masterful is in its suspension. So do not go cheap on the suspension. If you get a coil system, spend anywhere from $1,200 to $2,000. When you look at your tires, have every consideration in the tires. Have the setup done perfect. In this case, we spent $2,000 to get to this part with the tires and rims, but you may spend more. It depends on what kind of setup you want and how successful you want to be. The goal of this vehicle is going to be focused on the success on the track. No, it's not so much its success on the street. So those are things you're going to be thinking about. When it comes to maintenance though, car's not too bad. Really, you're just worrying about the new suspension that you put in and making sure it's dialed in every day that you hit the track, making sure that the tires are right. You're going to probably spend a lot of money on tires if you're drifting, but otherwise the engine just needs its regular tune-ups, its regular oil changes, and obviously anything that added with power of that nature. So you're going to have to work with somebody if you want to make more power, but with a lot of these cars you don't really need to do much in the power front to get them to do what they're going to do. It really is in the suspension and in the tires. So you're going to focus on that area the most, and you're probably going to spend the most money there by far. So don't come in thinking that you're just going to do oil changes. You're going to want to do something with your tires and your regular upkeep. It's going to be one of those vehicles that you're going to have to love. Some of the new items that are in this car that are going to be upkeep wise that you may not be aware of are things that are associated with drifting themselves. Obviously we went over tires and things of that nature, but the other thing about drifting is when you're shifting back and forth, the frame of these cars do twist. Now with this car, didn't see much problem with that, but that was one thing that we did address and say with some drift cars, they do twist and it causes the doors to come out and they drop a little bit. This car didn't have it, which was kind of cool, but in the same respect, if you get a drift car, it's something you're going to want to think about down the road, is because your frame is going to twist. But that was the cool thing, and I think that's really why a lot of people go with this car with the shorter wheelbase. I don't think it gives it much of that flexibility that it causes some of the problems that most cars like this would have. And like I said, if all the cars that I saw that I said drift, today was the day that I said, if you're going to choose a drift car and you're going to choose a daily driver, chances are you're going to pick an AE86. So guys, that was what it's like to drive a drift car on the road. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you like and subscribe. We're going to put a link to the Instagram for this vehicle in the description below, and also down below so you can see it. I want to make sure that you can follow this car down the road, because I'm sure it's going to have a lot of history. It's going to be on drift tracks in the future. And remember, when you see it, you're going to know that this car not only was daily driven, but it showed you what it's like to drive. I also noticed something really cool. This is a 1985, so it has an antique plate, so it doesn't have to meet inspection.